Hi, good evening. Hello, Julian. This is another Live with Ghali edition, and we'll be talking about all things design, immersive experiences, all of these terms that are becoming more and more related to our daily conversation when it comes to retail and retail experience. Julian, tell me a little bit more about yourself, what you do, and how have you become across the continent?
Oh,
What happened 20 years ago?
good question, Kali. Well, thank you for inviting me. And a bit about myself. I studied at Central St. Martin's industrial design. And so that's three-dimensional consumer products. However, I had studied theater design before I studied industrial design, and I was well versed in the art of theater and what that meant in terms of performance and communicating a story. In retail stories, that would be a brand story or a brand experience. So I see the whole immersive sensory experiential movement as a continuation of our relationship with theater, the theater of life. Let's call it life, living, aspiration, retail. All of these things are, in my opinion, facets that help you become who you want to be. A retail environment is very much like a theater. You enter as a character, you purchase something in order to provide yourself with value, productivity, or something to uplift your spirit or to make you into somebody who you feel that purchase will enable. My experience as a theater designer and then industrial designer combined these two aspects. So the three-dimensional spatial design of an object translated into an environment was a simple progress for me. The similar attributes in terms of what do you look for, what is your first point of contact, and I look at experiential and immersive retail very much as a performance.
Yeah.
So that would be my take.
Yeah, and this take actually is becoming the new reality in design and retail design. It took us retailers a long time, I think many decades, to realize that retail is not product oriented. Retail is only a part of our daily life. And we have to integrate this concept into designing retail spaces or urban spaces accommodating retail for them to make more sense to consumers. So as you said, there's a lot of thinking from the consumer's point of view. To what extent you work on that research part to understand what the consumer wants from that space?
Well, not necessarily so much, but it would just be in terms of my social studies from college and how I've evolved that into physiological data and human factors. But I'm thinking more in terms of magic, mystery, and meaning. You know, as a consumer, I think to myself, okay, what do I want? What is important to me? Do I feel welcomed? Do I feel embraced? Do I feel part of this community? And I feel that brands now are aspiring to really engage people, not on a superficial level. However, that is the challenge, how to create authenticity, meaning, and value with your client, your customer. And I'm very interested in this notion of the psychological state of mind that customer experiences when they first enter a retail environment, and what are these touch points along the way, the signifiers that invite you and engage you and bring you along this journey and ultimately give you or influence you to make a purchase. So there's a lot of retail psychology, design psychology, and general lifestyle psychology that goes into this new performance of retail.
And I think it's very difficult to answer like, okay, Julian, like, how do you do it? It means it should have a process that involves all of these elements or variables into a way of thinking, way of processing, way of delivering outcomes, or is it something very personal to you and other persons who might be doing the same thing?
I can speak from experience that what's important for me is the journey. It's the magic of a moment, the anticipation, the surprise, the delivery of that reward, which is ultimately a purchasing decision. And it feels very much like a stage managed experience where I, the consumer, am the main protagonist. I'm the lead
the actor.
Performer. And in order to feel valued by the brand and the retail environment, I need certain things. I need to feel comfortable. I need to feel secure. I need my senses or my sensory experiences to be catered to. I need haptic information. I need tactile, visceral information that makes me feel satisfied. If I see something that's superficial, I meet my perception immediately sees this as a negative, and I don't want it. I don't like this. I think this is scary. Unless I'm shopping for Halloween and I want some 70s outfit, it involves a certain game, I would say. And it's the game of purchasing. Do you buy something simply because it's popular and everyone has something, or do I need to invest in something that has value, meaning, and a purpose for my purchase? And I, as an individual, like to be very specific about what I buy and why I buy it. I realized that my purchase has power. There are ethical, environmental, there are all sorts of reasons for my purchase. So a brand experience is another way of looking at a sensory immersive retail environment. Who is the brand? What do they stand for? Who do they do it for? And why do they do it? So very simple questions. And within those simple questions, my identity as a consumer suddenly takes on an enormous importance. My purchasing power becomes very important. In the same way, everybody else makes an individual purchasing decision in a retail environment based on their needs, wants, and desires. And environments can stimulate that or not. They can invite and embrace you, or you can go into a retail environment and walk straight out. Because the lighting maybe is too garish, it's too hospital-like, it suddenly reminds you of a hospital or a doctor's surgery, or does it remind you of the ambience you felt in a chill-out lounge when you were with friends? Maybe. So all of these experiences are designed. They're either designed well and thoughtfully, or they're designed very badly because there's no thought behind them.
Yeah. So this cannot but help me rethink of the famous publication that was done by Fine and Gilmore in 1999 and the beginning of the year 2000, which is Welcome to the Experience Economy. It says that we have moved into that experience economy where, as you said, the customer comes in to buy an experience and the product is the result of that effort. Thinking of those elements that you have evoked. We have talked about the importance of the sensory aspect of the space, how it stimulates the consumer's senses. It creates that personal link between me and if I am able to connect with that environment or not. And this connection is related to an action that the customer or the protagonist takes with the space. To what extent are these spaces immersive? To what extent can consumers today co-create their experience through their visit to the space, a retail space or an urban space?
That's a great question. I feel art galleries and art installations are an interesting analogy. Some of them they keep you away, very hands-off. Other experiences invite you to become part of the performance, to become an engaged and active participant. And those aspects in retail that engage you and invite you to co-create, like Nike. They have little design laboratories, like where you can go in. It's set up like a design lab. There are people in workshop outfits, and you can go and choose the paint, you can choose the stitching color, you can choose motifs and logos, and you can personalize something. So for a huge brand to suddenly realize, actually, to personalize something is much more valuable than just rolling out something that is industrially manufactured. And there's some thinking there. There is engagement, there's a recognition of your value as a creative person and a cat. Hi, cat. And I think it's very successful to have that experience. The more interaction you have in a retail environment, the more successful your relationship will be with that brand. The more likely you are to embrace it and feel, this is part of my community. I feel like I'm family here, and it's really where you want to be. Yeah.
So it's like creating that meaningful relationship, which will turn later on as it might become a friendship, or more than a transactional, like, or a passing type of encounter. This being said, this way of designing goes back to many types of research that has been done, saying that most of the times we could inject certain types of stimuli in the atmosphere that would influence consumer emotions, that will in return influence consumers' behavior. This behavior could be positive or negative. As you said, the customer could stay in or flee the space. And if we're going into a concept of design to co-create value and co-create experiences, to what extent can these efforts help us build a connection and more loyalty with our customers?
I believe that customer research, just simply a brand asking, what do you want? What do you need? How can we help you create that? You know, a dialogue, as opposed to, we're going to design it, you just buy it, that's it. I think a dialogue where you're given choices and you're given some authority to make these creative decisions. Creative decisions is where the value is. I'm thinking about some fragrance stores or perfumes, and you know, if you're looking at senses, what happens when you go into a perfume store? You're suddenly bombarded with multiple sensory, olfactory experiences, and all of a sudden you're able to, like a bee, find one that resonates with you. There's like a pheromone thing. But even though there's many choices, you're still able to choose. I think there's a fragrance called Le Labo, where you can mix your own fragrances, which is quite bold and novel, but you can choose essential oils or ingredients to make your own fragrances, which I also like. Mm-hmm. So it's the choice and the act of engaging with that environment that gives you a better relationship. Mm-hmm. Something that's personal.
Yeah, something that's personal, that's right. And to conclude on that aspect related to the space and the atmosphere, more spaces are becoming social spaces or embracing the social values of like the human inside the process of consumption. How are spaces being designed to accommodate customers, like to accommodate us and us with other people who are sharing at the same time the same space? No?
What I'm seeing, I think this goes back to Roman times when you have town planning, where you have the forum and you have the marketplace and you have all of the elements you need for a society have been designed. And this facet is ancient. However, today we're looking at retail environments that bring you in with a cafe, a long dining table, for example, where many, many people can sit and they come to the table. You have maybe 50 people at one long table. There is entertainment, there is a DJ, there may be an artist in residence. It's more about performance and performance art, and then becoming part of this community through socializing and being invited to stay longer. It's like the hospitality environment, the hotel lounge. You know, hotel lounges were a place where you could go, you could hang out, you could meet people, you could drink, you could read. You know, these were like modern day forums, a bit like a library, except this was a more socially productive space where you could come and actually express yourself. And I think many, many environments now are offering espresso bars in their retail outlets. Maybe there's flower arranging in one retail space. Another one has food tasting, a personal chef, t-shirt printing, all sorts of small moments that jog your memory into believing, oh, I really valued that experience. It was great. I love the t-shirt that ice cream printed in this store. Yeah. Or I really enjoyed the free flowers that I got from my floral display lesson. I think when a brand decides to give its audience something, the investment on the return with the customer becoming a loyal community member is where you have this kind of magic happen, because they're enticing you through interaction and through experiences, creative experiences, to invest and commit your purchasing power into this retail space.
I'm curious, however, Julian, was it easy for retailers or clients to adopt this way of thinking when you first started working in the industry? I mean, it was easier 20 years ago to say that a brand has to have a certain standard, like the brand Bible, you know, it should be applied in New York, in Paris, in London, and in, I don't know, Korea in the same way, regardless of any factor that might affect this decision negatively or positively. And consumers were formatted actually to go and see the same design like everywhere, every time at the same time. However, this way of thinking has changed. It has evolved, especially in the past decade. How was your experience even evolving with that change of mentality on the market?
I think it comes from suddenly the brand realizing they have a lot to learn from their audience, the customers, as opposed to having all the answers. Yeah. So the experience has changed. I think one of the reasons you have cultural diversity in different retail outlets is because of the experience you have in one culture is not necessarily applicable to another. And yet you're still able to retain authenticity and engagement because the paradigm shift in power has changed. Retailers realize they can no longer afford to ignore their customers by dictating the only way to purchase something. They say, you must come here. We will run over to you and say, can we help you? What do you need? And not leave you alone. It's more about choice. And as you know, our consciousness and psychology has evolved in this kind of information age. We have more access to information, more understanding about where goods and products and services are manufactured. We know more about the retailers than ever before. With 24-hour information, you know exactly what's going in terms of supply chains and how they treat their workers and what's happening in certain countries where things are manufactured. So the playing field has been leveled in terms of the power dynamic. And it's definitely changed because retailers that are not adapting are going out of business and have been out of business.
Yeah, have gone. Yeah, right.
Closed.
Like they have become irrelevant, actually.
Yes, it's no longer enough just to sell a product. There is more of a story behind that product. And we as consumers are no longer blindfolded when it comes to making a purchase, which is quite often how it felt. Sometimes the pressure to buy something in a retail environment was so overwhelming because maybe the staff had commissions to make on whether the customer bought something. So there was less mutual respect, and it's like a cat and mouse game. It became, I'm not enjoying this. I don't want to be here because I don't have the freedom to do what I want, to experience this as a non-linear experience. And be random, be diverse. And retailers, or smart retailers, are more aware of that.
Yeah. I mean, we feel that we're giving customers, or I don't want to even call them customers. Maybe sometimes we just want to go there, explore, have a look, discover. We're not always into that formatted action that if I go into the doors of that boutique or that department store or that mall, that I want to shop. Today, I don't feel like shopping. And retailers are acknowledging that customers do want to come and explore, discover something new. And now they want to, as you said it, and this is beautiful, like they want to feel or see the magic or discover like this little hidden gem somewhere in that store or in that space. Talking about magic, talking about discoveries, all of these new terms are being translated more and more and integrated in our daily design. And Julian, how have you been applying these concepts in your daily projects? Would you care sharing some projects that you have worked on lately and in which you have applied these concepts?
Well, I can discuss some experiences for hospitality chain. I cannot mention the name just yet. However, they involve the beach, being outside, but they also involve recognition of the culture that used to live in that environment before the hospitality hotel moved in. So there's an awareness of history of the beach community where I am creating this experience. I'm also looking at urban sustainability and how to increase awareness in terms of where our food comes from. So there's more of a social and environmental message in the work that I'm creating. And yes, there is a 50-foot table where the community can come together. However, there are multiple pods where the guests and visitors can experience growing salads, for example. And I have introduced a lot of the local vernacular architectural details into my environment, which reflect the landscape. So I'm taking local cues. I'm also looking at environmental issues, and I'm looking at communities and how they best engage within this space. So there is color, there is spatial dynamics, there is a flow and a journey, yet they're anchored by these community spaces of this 50-foot table where people come together, and there's a library within this 50-foot table where you can learn about the local architecture, community, vertical farming, organic farming, and urban design. So it's more of a give and take. You learn something, you share something, and you feel like you're actively engaged in this experience. So that would be one. The other area where I have a lot more flexibility is in art installations, simply because art installations are purely designed to engage your senses and immerse you within the velvet folds of an experience, and you are embraced. So I don't draw the line too much between art and design, and I feel they're interchangeable. However, I do draw a lot on experiences that have happened through our history that invite people together, like coffee lounges in, I don't know, 17th century. Like people could come and drink coffee all night. It was like the go-to experience of the day. And now we have, then we had internet lounges in the early 2000s. And we need these cultural spaces to maintain connection with people. And you have, bringing your computer to a cafe, it's that experience where you're flexible, you're mobile, yet you can still engage.
Mm-hmm. I was always looking at these spaces and seeing that they are becoming interlaced, art, retail, design, a restaurant, a coffee shop, like everything is becoming more connected, and concepts are being holistic in the sense that they are englobing more aspects into their retail aspect, or vice versa. But would this at certain point endanger the brand, or would it lead in a couple of years to a dissolution of the boundaries between art, services, hospitality, and retail?
That's an interesting question. I have to disagree, simply because I feel that creativity in whatever facet is a connective, binding force. And I love going to a hotel, for example, that has commissioned 30 different artists to create 30 different rooms. So you have 30 different creative experiences. And each artist gets a percentage of the nightly stay from the guests. This hotel will have an art studio in the basement, and it will have a music recording studio and local baked goods. So you have these hives of creativity and activity that bring people together. You can certainly have a very rigid experience still if you go to certain hotel chains. But if you seek out new and innovative hospitality experiences, they are definitely catering to the experience economy. And that is something that I feel is the future in any environment, in the office, at home, and at, in our social lives. These are experiences that punctuate our lives that we grow from. That's how I feel.
Perfect. Now the question related to technology, digitalization of the spaces, and of course the question related to metaverse comes in whenever we talk about spaces. Physical spaces are becoming important hubs for brands or other organizations to include like digital devices. Moreover, they are becoming a gateway for people to come and connect with others through the metaverse.
Right.
Whatever we translate this into our today's understanding of that term, we didn't stabilize it yet, but how is it affecting your work or design in general, retail design in general?
A good question. I love the notion of the metaverse. My experiences so far have been mixed, and I understand its potential, and I know we're at a fledgling growth period. It's not where it can be. I feel, take me to a physical space and drop me into an environment with projection mapping, and I love that. I love physically walking through a space with cool projection mapped experiences and real live events and performance. It's magical. Until we get this kind of haptic feedback. I mean, I don't know if we have to wear a full suit with our goggles in the future to fly into the metaverse. I'm not sure. I'm not there yet. And I see the potential, and I understand the retail opportunities of buying something in the metaverse and picking it up in real life, or collaborating in some sort of metaverse factory, and then like maybe 3D printing your product and having it delivered, or going to the physical brand location. I think they'll work better in stereo or spatial sound, shall we say. It's on its way. I think there is a lot of potential, but it's incredibly clunky. I mean, my son's Nintendo games are far more engaging than the metaverse, I still feel.
Yeah.
So it has a long way to go. Tremendous opportunity. I think when technology catches up, I mean, there are so many advances in synthetic biology and organic technology where all of a sudden it's just going to explode how many new opportunities there are for experiences. Just wait. That's all I can say. It's happening incrementally, and the changes will be here soon enough, but they're not ready yet.
Yeah. We have to reflect on it, and still we have to be very attentive, like to pick up the wave whenever everything starts going into that direction.
Yeah.
Interesting. And Julian,
just one more point on the metaverse. I do think that the same attributes that you have in real life work in the metaverse: the engagement, the relationship, the authenticity of any brand, and the value of that engagement is going to be just the same, if not more important, in the metaverse, simply because the experience is not perfect yet.
Yeah. And if I might say, this design aspect is also very important, like recreating a meaningful design, but a human-like design, in the sense that we still need to relate to that metaverse in human understandings. I don't know how to say it, but
Yeah, I mean, it becomes more performance art, retail. You know, your avatar is, you know, an extension of your alter ego, and you know, we're playing with psychology and out of body experiences, so it becomes kind of quasi spiritual in some aspect. But to be continued. That's all I can say.
Yes, yes. Let's both reflect on that. Finally, how about spatial design and social and cultural barriers? I mean, I see from your point of view, you really take a lot of time to analyze the person, the psychology, and the culture. How important are these elements in today's design world, and to what extent they make or break a design?
Right. I think in many design studios there are teams that study different aspects of cultural influence and etiquette, and you know, just to make sure that the design process doesn't do something that's extremely disrespectful in one culture, whereas in another it's not. However, I think your basic research into culture will give you those kind of cues. You'll understand whether you can use certain colors that have one meaning in one culture and the opposite in another. So those are very simple factors. I think as a global community, we all have the same rituals, you know, life, birth, relationships, death, etc. And there are many meaningful relationships that connect us in terms of our shared experience. And it's those experiences that are very important to introduce into a spatial environment, whether you feel, again, part of a community, whether you're accepted for who you are or you feel you're not. I think that's the most important cultural barrier that we all experience, is whether or not we're accepted. And that's the first barrier to any relationship.
Right.
Can I be myself without fear of repercussion? So I would say that would be an opportunity or a limitation for all cultural design experiences, to understand that is a primary focus, to invite you and me to be in the same space and feel comfortable, where we can be our authentic selves. Or not, if you want to be somebody else. And if the rules are you can be a different person, that's fine too.
True.
Those rules have to be established though, and you have to understand the terms of your engagement within a space.
Yeah, that's so true. My final question would be today related to an important theme, actually, which is design and sustainability. If I'm not mistaken, I have been seeing many brands looking at developing environments, whether retail environments or other immersive environments, that are very much local and that do think of using any material that comes from around the area to recycle, reuse, etc. And some other brands are rethinking their practices to do better designs that are less polluting and better environments with less polluting materials, etc. How does this affect also today's work? And for a person like you, how does it make things more difficult, actually, or less difficult? How does it affect your work?
Very good question. I think it all comes down to identity, whether the brand you're working with really wants to invest in sustainability, or is it marketing, is it greenwashing? Where do they draw the line? And for companies that really believe in sustainability, they will fully understand the implications of their manufacturing process, from where the materials are sourced to the circular design economy of the manufacturing process, where the energy is recycled and put back into the process, or are they using reclaimed materials locally? So, I mean, these are all great questions and very pertinent right now, given in the state of climate. And I do feel sometimes it comes down to cost. Many clients will absolutely refuse to pay for materials that are sustainably sourced because they can be up to 75% more expensive than the stuff that they've always used and just chucked out. I'm very conscious about the materials that I choose. I always specify sustainable materials or local resources, and ultimately it's the client that chooses where to spend their money. I have to say that it's so important that brands do adopt true sustainable practices and work with local communities and fair trade communities to actually democratize the whole design process and the manufacturing process, so that we all have a stake in the future of our planet. And by design, we make those choices. I mean, you get the footwear brands that are using ocean plastic, and that's great. It's there'll come a point, hopefully, where we won't have to use that anymore, because maybe there'll be more cellulose plastics that can be grown and harvested locally. I don't know where the future of organic material production is right now, but I do like the idea of cellular plastics, cellular plastics, for example, not cellular. This is why it's important to work with scientists to actually understand material science.
Yeah, and this is also a point that should lead us to being very open to what is available today and working with it and working around it. And I believe that makes us better retailers, designers, and yeah, I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Absolutely.
Julian, I don't know if I missed a question that or a theme that we should have discussed tonight, or did I do the round table? And is there anything else that you would like to add to our conversation tonight?
Well, that's another good question. How about that we are all part of this future of retail, and it's very much a community experience where it's up to us to interact and collaborate with these brands to get the changes we want to see in the new retail environment. And I welcome more dialogue with brands to actually level the playing field. Yeah. There's brands that I'm very fond of at the moment in New York, Telfar, and I love their fashion, and I love the fact they're so community focused, and they're designing for everybody, not for you, but for everybody. It's that kind of spirit of generosity that I enjoy in a brand.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And I believe that really, to add on what you said, it is becoming I think it's inevitable to look at the direction of development of retail and everything that retailers or businesses or communities are doing, thinking in the same direction, working together, hand in hand, as we say. Everyone does his or her bit this effort is minimal because I can do it here, but with your effort and with another retailer's or brand's effort, things will get better and they will move in that direction. And I hope that really the future is going to be brighter, cleaner, safer, and retail is always going to be retail, but I hope that it stays focused on that social aspect and that exchange aspect. And I would really hope it would never lose the magic that some retailers are and designers are doing, and this possibility of keeping us dreaming, us consumers, like dreaming, hoping, being ourselves, and always being good when we are spending or doing an effort towards the other. Like, I don't know if you join me on that. In whatever direction retail is going to be, I hope that it's always going to think that the effort is mutual and there is no party that's above the other. And yeah, I don't know if I hope for that future, and I hope that it's going to look in that direction. What is the next step for Julian? What are your upcoming projects, and how are you evolving in your work?
I am hopefully going to be working on a project that involves some C-suite management to engage them in a large format forum, an immersive environment where they come together to learn about optimism in design and optimism for the future of retail and brand experiences and organizational change based from C-suite level thinking to level the playing field. So I will be creating various experiences for these participants to engage in, to get a better understanding of what's important in our lives, not their lives, but all of our lives, and how this plays out into like a circular economy. So it's really fundamental change in value thinking for major brands. And it's quite exciting. It's a bit like a retreat, but an active retreat where...
Okay, I dare not ask more, but it's like...
That's all I can say for now.
We're so excited. And I hope it's going to be like close to this continent, this part of the world. Or is it something that's staying...
I think it will. I think initially it will be in the US.
In the US?
I believe it will travel eventually.
Okay, I hope so. Like, looking forward to this great news, and good luck with your project. Thank you so much, Julian, for this beautiful conversation. It has been a long time, ever since I started doing these chats, that we focus on this aspect of design and retail, this human aspect, this aspect of magic, of experience, of authenticity. And I really loved our talk today, and look forward for the positive news about your project. Thank you.
Thank you, Galia. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.